Before the ban, UC Berkeley and UCLA were roughly representative of the California high school graduate population who were eligible for enrollment at universities. The ban first took effect with the incoming class of 1998. Subsequently, diversity plummeted at UC's most competitive campuses. That year, enrollment among Black and Latino students at UCLA and UC Berkeley fell by 40%, according to a 2020 study. As a result of the ban, Bleemer found that Black and Latino students who might have gone into those two top schools enrolled at less competitive campuses. Black and Hispanic students saw substantially poorer long-run labor market prospects as a result of losing access to these very selective universities, but there was no commensurate gain in the long-run outcomes for the white and Asian students who took their place.
But stop right there for 1 second. There's two things that are sticking out to me.
The ban has, in fact, let me finish this. No, because this is what you asked for. The ban has, in fact, acted as a deterrent to prospective Black and Latino students. His study found that high-performing minority students were subsequently discouraged from applying to schools where minority students were underrepresented. Most do not want to attend a university where there's not a critical mass of same-race peers. That's because attending a school made less diverse by an affirmative action ban puts them at greater risk of being stereotyped and being isolated. These findings provide the first casual evidence that banning affirmative action exacerbates socioeconomic inequities.
It's interesting, but it's also interesting to me that kids wouldn't apply. It's interesting to me that 40% of the people who wanted to go to Stanford in any kind of ethnic diverse group just decided not to apply. It doesn't make sense. It's almost
because you're not them. Because you're not them. So maybe it's not meant to make sense to you or I. Nothing kept me from applying to the University of Miami, even though I knew I couldn't afford to go there. You know what I mean? You take out loans, you do what you need to do.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't make sense that affirmative action carries that much weight prior to the application process. Do you know what I mean?
You also understand that it costs money to apply to schools, right? Like, it costs a lot of money. It costs $50. It costs $100. I don't know the going rate. I know it was $100 for my application, and that was in 1998 for the University of Miami. So if you're putting money down, right, every application you're sending out, and you're a person from a marginalized or a disenfranchised or a poor background, right, you might be going, okay, well, if I've got $500 to spend on applications, I'm going to put them where I know I'm going to get in. Or maybe instead of applying at UCLA or UC Berkeley, I'm going to go with Howard, or I'm going to go with Morehouse.
I get it, but
or I'm going to go with Texas A&M. Like, still good universities, but I know that they cater, and I know that they want my group.
Is affirmative action a guarantee that an ethnic student is going to get into a college?
Is it a guarantee that a Black, Latino, or Asian student is going to get into a college?
Yes. Is it a guarantee? So, back to what I'm saying. If it's not a guarantee, if you have affirmative action, what's the difference when you don't have affirmative action?
But do you realize, if you're applying to law schools, your advisor will tell you, don't pick a typical law school major, right? Like, don't necessarily go with
ambulance chaser,
philosophy. No. Like certain undergrad majors that tons of law school applicants are going to major in, because guess what? That increases the number of individuals you're competing against, right? Be a biology major. There's not a whole lot of bio majors that are applying to law school, right? Most bio majors want to be doctors. You know what I mean? So right there, that should tell you, like, if you know there's a certain number of spots available, or there's a way to lessen the amount of people that you're competing against, right? Because this amount of spots are set aside for XYZ. Now I know I'm still competing against the creme de la creme, but it's a smaller amount because there's less of us, and there's less of us that have had access to the type of education and the type of tools and resources needed. You're acting like every kid graduating from every high school across the country because of affirmative action is like, I'm going to apply to Harvard. That's not happening.
I'm just curious how it works, because it doesn't make sense.
And again,
it doesn't make sense because, okay, affirmative action, they don't take every student just based on their race. So without affirmative action, they don't take every student based on their race. So what's the difference in the application? Why?
Knowing that
you're caused these. Knowing that you're competing against the same people you were competing against before.
But guess what?
There's 50,000 applicants.
But there's no spots set aside just for you. So again, if you're coming from an inner city, if you're coming from a Compton high school where you don't have access to the 7,000 other extracurriculars that your private, private school
told me that affirmative action doesn't set aside specific spots for specific students.
Well, no, I didn't. That's exactly what I just said to you.
No.
That's what affirmative action does. It sets aside a certain number of spots for people based on their race.
But it's no guarantee that they'll get in.
No, but yes, because out of 50,000 applicants, if they set aside 40 spots, you don't think there's 40 qualified black applicants to fill those spots?
I'm sure there is. But without affirmative action, there's the same amount of spots and the same amount of applicants. Why wouldn't they still have that same?
Because there's more. Because there's still going to be more white kids. So yes, there's probably a white kid who didn't get a spot. Yeah,
that the administration office, the administration
that there's a spot that went to a black kid that possibly could have gone to a white kid.
At the administration at Harvard who's going over the applications is a racist. But your argument, Kimmy, is that these students have the same academic level as these students. So you have the ethnic students that are 1,400 SAT, did all their community service, did all this stuff, they're in band, they're in this, they're in that, and the same white kid over here they're exactly the same. You're telling me that they're exactly the same when they enter college. So forget about what happened at Carroll City High School.
But I didn't tell you that, though.
But
what I'm telling you is the creme de la creme of these groups are all applying. Some things are weighted higher. Some GPAs are weighted higher. Some people have all their AP courses, and those are all qualified.
So is it academics?
Why do you have a problem with them doing this for people, though? I don't understand. Considering for hundreds of years, women and people of color were not allowed access to these schools. Do you think that you can even it out in 30 or 40 years? You can even out all of that advantage in 30 or 40 years. So now it's time to just get rid of okay, you guys have had your opportunity.
The advantage academic?
You just saw it. What do you mean? Going to those schools is an academic advantage. It's a networking advantage. Having access to certain universities is most definitely a game changer with earning potential.
You go to Harvard for the Rolodex. I get it. But back to what I was saying about California. Okay? They saw a 40% decrease in applications, which means that without affirmative action, let me finish what I'm saying.
Go for it.
Okay? They saw a 40% decline in applications. Okay? Because those kids think, those 40% think that if they apply there,
they're not going to get it.
Based on race.
It's funny because you're such a pessimist in some ways, and then you all of a sudden, when it comes to racial issues, want to believe that we live in this utopian place where everybody is graded on their fucking merit. We saw it with a massive scandal where parents who could afford to pay $500,000 for a fake rowing picture were able to buy their children's way in.
That's the 1%. That's the 1%.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, this is helping socioeconomically disenfranchised or disadvantaged individuals access higher education.
But why is it help? But you're taking it to socioeconomics.
Because unfortunately, that also has to do with race in a lot of situations, Len.
But you're taking it to socioeconomics, and you're telling me, on the other hand, that these kids are equal academically. So if they're equal academically, it shouldn't matter if they're poor or not.
But it does.
But why?
I don't know. Ask the fucking people over admissions.
Here's my
and that's a public school system.
But they're taking it on race because they're not taking the person's credit score or how much money they have. They're taking that's not on your application. They're taking it based on race.
You understand though, I want it. No. But Lenny, I'm saying academically, yes, you can have the same SAT score and go to whatever. Do you really think that the kid at we've proven this. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas is a school here in South Florida, right? It's an A school. a school less than 3 miles away is a C school, right? And that's a current controversy. Do you really think that your kids have the same access and opportunity and experience as far as high school goes as kids in majority of our inner city public schools? Do you?
No.
Okay, so when kids like that are applying, first of all, there's so many different factors that go into that process. It's also connections. It's who's writing your fucking letters. Like, you usually have to get, some sort of, I don't want to say a qualifying letter, but you usually have to get letters of recommendation from teachers.